The red warning light flashed 3 times before the alarm started blaring through Haven 1's control room. It was the kind of alarm that no one had ever expected to hear, the deep, pulsing tone that signaled an unidentified object entering the solar system. Captain Robert wiped the sleep from his eyes as he rushed to the main control panel. The night shift wasn't supposed to be exciting. That's why they gave it to him. The captain who asked too many questions about helping others instead of following protocols. "Report," he called out, his voice steadied despite his racing heart. Mary, his sensor operator, was already running scans. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display. "Sir, it's not like anything we've seen before. The object is moving at speeds that shouldn't be possible, but it's slowing down. And sir," she paused, double-checking her readings, "it's giving off energy patterns similar to our own engines, but far more advanced." The room fell silent except for the continuing alarm. Everyone knew what this meant. After all the false alarms, all the mysterious signals that turned out to be space junk or forgotten satellites, this was it. First contact. Robert reached for the emergency protocol button, the one that would alert Earth's military forces. His hand stopped inches away as new data flashed across the screen. "Sir," Mary's voice cracked slightly, "I'm picking up life signs. Multiple species based on the different biological signatures. And," she took a deep breath, "many of them are fading." Robert's training told him to press that button. Protocol demanded it. But as he stared at the readings showing failing life signs, he made a different choice. He opened a channel to the station's rescue vessel, the Mercy. "This is Captain Robert to all Mercy crew members. Emergency launch in 5 minutes. This is not a drill." He turned to his communications officer. "Send the alert to Earth after we launch. Better to ask forgiveness than permission." The Mercy's crew was used to unusual orders from their captain. Within 4 minutes, they were suited up and ready. The small rescue ship detached from Haven 1, its engines pushing it toward the mysterious vessel. As they got closer, they could see it clearly through the viewport. The alien ship was beautiful, or at least it had been. Its sleek silver hull was punctured in several places, and what looked like engine pods were dark and lifeless. It drifted like a wounded animal. "Life support is failing in multiple sections," reported Tom, the Mercy's engineer. "They've rerouted all remaining power to one central chamber. That's where the life signs are concentrated." Robert made another decision that would probably cost him his job. Prep the emergency docking procedure. The crew worked in focused silence as they matched speed with the alien vessel. The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud that echoed through the Mercy's hull. Robert led the rescue team to the airlock, each member carrying emergency medical kits designed for human use, hoping some of it might help whatever they found. The door between the ships opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The air was breathable, according to their sensors, but they kept their helmets on as they moved forward. The corridor was dark, lit only by their suit lights and occasional flickers from damaged systems. They found the central chamber quickly, following the power readings. Robert expected many things when that door opened. He expected aliens with weapons, maybe, or advanced technology beyond human understanding. What he didn't expect was children. The chamber was filled with them. Dozens of young aliens of different species huddled together for warmth. Some looked almost human, others were completely foreign, but all shared the same look of fear and hope as the rescue team entered. One small figure stepped forward. It had blue-tinted skin and large eyes that reminded Robert of deep ocean creatures. In its 4-fingered hand, it held out what was clearly a medical device, pointing at the others. No words were needed. The universal language of asking for help transcended species. Robert knelt down to the alien child's level and opened his medical kit. Behind him, he could hear his crew doing the same. "It's okay," he said, knowing they couldn't understand his words but hoping they would understand his tone. "You're safe now. We'll help you all." As his crew began treating the injured, Robert sent a message back to Haven 1. Inform Earth we have refugees. And tell them. He looked at the children again. Tell them to prepare the emergency ward. We're bringing them home. The emergency ward of Haven 1 had never been so full. Dr. Emma stood in the doorway, watching her medical team work. They had pushed aside the standard beds to make room for various makeshift sleeping arrangements. Some of the alien children needed to rest in pools of warm water. Others preferred to hang from soft cloth strips near the ceiling. The regular rules didn't apply anymore. They couldn't. How could they when each alien child needed something completely different? "Doctor, we need you here," called one of her nurses. Emma rushed over to a small creature with scales that changed color like mood rings. Its scales had turned a deep gray, and it was shivering despite the warm blankets around it. Emma checked the basic medical scanner they had modified for alien biology. The readings made little sense, but she had learned to trust her instincts over the past 12 hours. The child's body temperature was dropping. "Bring the heating lamps," she ordered, "and get me some of that sweet protein paste they seem to like." As her team worked, Emma heard the argument before she saw it. Two security officers were blocking the door, facing an angry group of government officials in dark suits. "This is a breach of protocol," one official shouted. "These aliens need to be quarantined. They could be carrying unknown diseases. They could be dangerous." Emma had heard enough. She walked over, still holding her medical scanner. "They're children," she said firmly. "Scared, hurt children. And yes, we did check for diseases. We may not understand their biology completely, but we know they're not a threat." The official pulled out a tablet, his face red with anger. "I have orders to move them to a secure facility for study. This is first contact. We need to understand their technology, their languages, their—" He stopped talking because a small alien child had wandered over and wrapped its 6 thin arms around his leg in a hug. The official froze, staring down at the child. Its skin glowed softly, giving off a gentle warmth. Emma watched as the man's face changed. It was the same look she had seen on every human who spent more than a few minutes with these children. The moment when they stopped seeing aliens and started seeing just kids. The official cleared his throat and put his tablet away. Perhaps we can set up the research facility here. It would be cruel to move them while they're still recovering." Emma nodded, hiding her smile. Another victory for simple compassion over cold rules. Back in the ward, Tom, one of the younger nurses, had made a breakthrough. He was using simple hand gestures to communicate with the children, and they were copying him. Point to something, make a gesture, and soon they all used the same sign. A new language was being born. "Food," Tom would say, making a motion like bringing something to his mouth. The children would copy it, adding their own sounds. Some chirped, others hummed. One made soft clicking noises. Emma watched as humans and aliens worked together to build understanding. Her team had thrown out the standard medical procedures and was creating new ones. They learned that some aliens needed songs to feel better, while others healed faster when they could touch the plants in the station's garden. A soft alarm sounded through the station. More ships had been detected entering the solar system. Emma felt her heart sink. Were they friendly? Would they try to take the children away? She looked around the ward. Her team was still working, ignoring the alarm. Tom was teaching new signs to a group of eager learners. The security officers had joined in, their weapons forgotten as they helped entertain the younger aliens with simple games. Emma made her decision. Whatever came next, these children were under their protection now. Humanity's first real step into the galactic community wouldn't be marked by fear or suspicion, but by kindness. She picked up her medical scanner and went back to work. There were still children who needed help, and that was all that mattered. The new ships were nothing like the damaged vessel they had rescued. These were sleek, powerful, and clearly built for speed. They moved with a kind of precision that spoke of advanced technology far beyond human capabilities. Tom watched them through Haven 1's observation window. his hands automatically making the new sign language gestures he had created. The alien children crowded around him, their various sounds mixing into a strange but happy chorus. They didn't seem afraid of the ships, which he took as a good sign. "They're asking to dock," Captain Robert said, joining them at the window. 3 different species, all claiming to be part of something called the Galactic Council. He smiled at the children. "Looks like we're about to have our first official first contact." The docking procedure took less than 10 minutes. The alien ships connected to Haven 1, with technology that made the station's systems look like ancient history. Tom stayed with the children while Dr. Emma and Captain Robert went to meet their visitors. The first aliens to step through the airlock were tall and graceful, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer. The second group had 4 arms and moved like flowing water. The third species looked almost human, except for their golden eyes and the patterns of light that danced across their skin. They spoke perfect English, thanks to translation devices that looked like small jewels on their necks. "We received the emergency beacons," the silver-skinned alien said. "We expected to find the children in holding cells, waiting to be questioned or studied. This is unexpected." Dr. Emma straightened her back. "They needed medical care. We gave it to them." "But they are not your species," the 4-armed alien said, confusion clear in its voice. "They have no value to your civilization. No resources to trade, no technology to share. Why would you use your limited medical supplies on them?" Captain Robert looked at the aliens like they were the strange ones. "They're children," he said simply. "They needed help. That's all we needed to know." The aliens followed them to the emergency ward. They watched as human nurses played games with floating light creatures, as security officers helped reptilian children build blanket forts, as cleaning staff shared their lunches with young aliens who hummed in happiness. "Impossible," the golden-eyed alien whispered. "Your species hasn't even reached your second planet successfully. You barely understand space travel. Yet you treat these refugees like your own offspring." Tom had been teaching a new sign to a group of children, the gesture for friend, when one of the council members approached him. The alien children didn't hide or run. Instead, they proudly showed off their new language, their hands moving in the patterns Tom had taught them. "You created this communication system?" the council member asked. "In less than 2 days." Tom shrugged. "They wanted to talk. We wanted to listen. It wasn't that hard." The council members gathered to discuss among themselves, their translator jewels turned off for privacy. Meanwhile, life in the ward continued. Dr. Emma checked on her patients. The kitchen staff brought in more food. A maintenance worker fixed a heating lamp, while 3 small aliens watched with interest, passing him tools. Finally, the council members turned back to Captain Robert. "We came expecting to find a primitive species holding children captive," the silver-skinned alien said. "Instead, we find this: care without condition, help without demand for payment, protection without political gain." The 4-armed alien touched its translator. "The Galactic Council has long debated whether younger species should be allowed to join galactic society. We thought we needed to wait until you had better technology, more advanced weapons, faster ships. We were wrong," the golden-eyed alien finished. "You have something far more valuable. You have compassion that transcends species. You have hearts big enough to love children who look nothing like your own." Tom watched as one of the smallest aliens climbed into Captain Robert's lap, making the sign for safe over and over. No translation was needed for that. News travels fast, even in space. Within days of the Galactic Council's visit, more aliens arrived at Haven 1. They came in ships of all sizes, some as small as cars, others as large as cities. Each brought something different: medical supplies, food, technology, and most importantly, information. The refugee children, it turned out, weren't just random survivors. They were what one alien called the unwanted ones, children born different from their species' normal patterns. Some glowed when they shouldn't, others didn't have the right number of arms, or showed unusual abilities. Their parents had sent them away to save them from those who hated anything different. Dr. Emma sat in the new conference room, surrounded by holograms of alien doctors who were teaching her about the children's biology. She had thought she knew a lot about medicine, but now she felt like a student again. "Your methods are strange," said a doctor made entirely of shifting crystals. "But they work. These children are healthier than when they left their homes. How did you know that the blue ones needed music to heal?" Emma smiled. "We didn't. We just noticed they seemed happier when the maintenance crew sang while working. So we tried more music. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best." Meanwhile, in what used to be the cargo bay, Tom had started what he called the galaxy's weirdest school. Children of all species sat together, learning each other's languages, sharing stories, and teaching the human staff about their worlds. The sign language they had created was growing more complex every day. Captain Robert watched it all from his office, reading reports from Earth. The politicians were arguing about protocols and dangers, but they were too late. The public had fallen in love with the alien children. People sent toys, books, and letters. Children on Earth made drawings for their space friends. Schools asked to set up video calls. "Sir," his computer beeped. "Unknown ship approaching, much larger than the others." Robert checked the readings and felt his heart skip. This ship was different. It was built for war, covered in weapons. As it came closer, several of the alien children began to cry. Even the ones without eyes somehow knew what was coming. The ship's commander didn't ask permission to communicate. His hologram simply appeared in the middle of Haven One's control room. He was tall, with armor that seemed to absorb light, and eyes that glowed red. "You have something that belongs to us," the commander said. His translator made his voice sound like grinding metal. "The impure ones, the mistakes, give them to us, and we will spare your station." Robert stood up straight. He wasn't a big man, and next to the alien warrior, he looked tiny. But his voice didn't shake. "They're children under our protection. We don't give up children, not to anyone." The commander laughed. "Protection? Your weapons are toys compared to ours. Your station's shields wouldn't last 1 minute against our smallest gun. What protection can you offer?" The door opened, and Dr. Emma walked in. Behind her came Tom, and behind him came nurses, engineers, cleaning staff, cooks, everyone who worked on Haven One. They stood together, forming a wall of human bodies. "Us," Emma said. "We're their protection." "You would die for these impure creatures?" the commander asked. "We would live for them," Tom corrected. "We would teach them, care for them, help them grow. That's much harder than dying." The commander opened his mouth to speak again, but another hologram appeared, then another, and another. Soon the room was filled with the faces of Galactic Council members, all watching. "Think carefully about your next action," the silver-skinned council member said. "These humans have shown us a better way, a way without hate. Are you sure you want to be the one who answers compassion with violence?" The commander looked around the room, at the determined humans, at the disapproving council members, and through the window at the children who were no longer crying but watching with hope. For the first time, he looked uncertain. The commander's warship hung in space like a dark cloud, its weapons still pointed at Haven One. Inside the station, no one had moved. The humans still formed their living wall, and the Galactic Council members watched through their holograms. "This is your final warning," the commander said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Give us the impure ones, or we will take them by force." That's when something unexpected happened. A small blue light appeared between the humans and the commander's hologram. It grew bigger, forming the shape of a child, one of the refugee children using abilities they hadn't known about before. The child's hands moved in the sign language Tom had created. Everyone watched as more children appeared, their forms glowing with different colors. They stood in front of the humans, protecting their protectors. The commander stepped back, even though he was just a hologram. Impossible. They were tested. They showed no signs of such powers. Maybe they just needed to feel safe first, Dr. Emma said softly. Safe enough to be themselves. One of the council members spoke up. Commander, your own laws prevent you from attacking a protected species. These humans have been officially recognized as a young but valued part of galactic society. An attack on them would bring the full force of the council against you. The commander's red eyes narrowed. They are protecting genetic impurities. Mistakes that should have been removed. No, Captain Roberts said. We're protecting children who needed help. And if you look at your readings, you'll see we're not the only ones. He pointed out the window. Ships had been arriving silently while they talked. Hundreds of them. Some belonged to the Galactic Council, others to species no one had seen before. They formed a ring around Haven 1, placing themselves between the station and the commander's warship. They came to help us, Tom explained, watching the ships with wonder. Just like we helped the children. Kindness creates more kindness. The commander looked at his own readings. Even with his advanced weapons, he couldn't fight so many ships. But he tried one last time. These impure ones will contaminate the gene pools of pure species. They will spread their differences. Good. Emma interrupted. Maybe more differences are exactly what the galaxy needs. These children aren't mistakes. They're just different. And different isn't wrong. The glowing children moved their hands again, signing words they had learned from humans. Friend, family, home, love. The signs flickered in the air like stars. A new voice joined the conversation. One of the refugee children, speaking through a translator for the first time. We choose to stay with the humans. They don't want to fix us or change us. They just want to help us grow. The commander's hologram flickered as he received messages from his superiors. Even they couldn't ignore so many witnesses, so many ships ready to defend a small human space station. This isn't over, he said, but everyone could hear the defeat in his voice. You're right, Robert agreed. It's just beginning. We're going to keep helping children who need homes. We're going to keep showing that different can be beautiful. And if you ever want to see how much better life can be without hate, you're welcome to visit. The commander's hologram vanished. His ship turned slowly and disappeared into the darkness of space. The defending ships sent messages of support before leaving one by one, until only the regular traffic around Haven 1 remained. Inside the station, humans and alien children hugged each other, their relieved laughter mixing together. The Galactic Council members watched with approval as the children's glow slowly faded, but their happiness didn't. Well, Dr. Emma said, looking at the celebrating crowd, I think we're going to need a bigger emergency ward. 6 months after the commander's retreat, Haven 1 had changed so much that visitors could hardly recognize it. The once simple space station now had 3 new wings, each built with help from different alien species. Gardens filled with plants from 100 worlds grew in special chambers. The emergency ward had become a full hospital that could treat any species in the galaxy. But the biggest change was in the empty cargo bays. They had become homes for more refugee children who arrived every week. Some fled from war, others from disaster, and many from people who feared their differences. On Haven 1, being different wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. Tom walked through what they now called the Rainbow Hall, named for the colorful lights that the children created when they were happy. His simple sign language had grown into something much bigger. Now it was the official second language of Haven 1, used by humans and aliens alike. Teacher Tom, called a voice. One of his first students, the blue-skinned child who had helped during the confrontation, floated down from the ceiling. Can you help us? We're trying to teach the new ones about Earth animals. Tom smiled and followed. In one of the learning rooms, a group of new refugee children watched with wide eyes as the older ones created light shapes of Earth creatures. A glowing elephant walked through the air. A shimmering giraffe stretched its neck to the ceiling. They don't believe that these animals are real, the floating child explained. They think we're making them up. Well, Tom said, pulling out his tablet, Wait until they see the videos of penguins. In the medical wing, Dr. Emma worked with a team of alien doctors. They had discovered that mixing different healing techniques worked better than using just one. Light therapy from one species combined with the sound healing of another. Earth medicine working together with alien technology. The new wing is ready, one of the alien doctors said. Their translator gems were rarely needed now. Most of the staff had learned each other's languages. We can help twice as many children now. Emma nodded, watching as a young reptilian child played catch with a human child in the recovery room. Neither seemed to notice or care that they looked nothing alike. Captain Robert stood in his new office, looking out at the ships coming and going from the station. Trade ships brought supplies. Medical ships brought new healing techniques, and every so often, small ships arrived carrying precious cargo. More children looking for a home. "Sir," his computer called, incoming message from Earth. The hologram showed the face of one of Earth's leaders. "Captain," the vote was unanimous. Haven 1 is now officially recognized as an independent entity. You'll have full authority to continue your mission of protecting and caring for refugee children from across the galaxy. Robert smiled. "Thank you, but the credit belongs to my crew. They're the ones who chose compassion over fear that first day." "The galaxy is changing," the leader said. "Other stations are following your example. Even some of the species who once feared differences are starting to change their minds." Later that day, the station held a celebration. Human children who had moved to Haven 1 with their parents played games with alien children. The station's cooks served food from 20 different worlds. The medical staff taught each other healing songs from their home planets. In one corner, the blue-skinned child who had first asked for help all those months ago stood with Tom. They watched as new refugee children arrived, scared and uncertain at first, but quickly welcomed by those who had come before. "Do you think the commander will ever come back?" the child asked. Tom shook his head. "I don't think so. But if he does, he'll find something even stronger than before. Not just humans protecting children, but the whole galaxy learning that love is stronger than fear." The child smiled and created a small light show of Earth animals dancing in the air. Around them, Haven 1 continued its mission, proving that the best way to change the galaxy wasn't with weapons or technology, but with open hearts and helping hands. 5 years had passed since the day a damaged ship brought the first refugee children to Haven 1. The space station had grown into something that no one could have imagined back then. It wasn't just a station anymore. It was a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Today was graduation day. The first group of refugee children who had arrived that day 5 years ago were now young adults. They stood in the Great Hall, wearing the special clothes they had chosen to represent both their original cultures and their time on Haven 1. Captain Robert, his hair now gray at the temples, stood at the speaking platform. Dr. Emma sat nearby, wiping tears from her eyes. Tom stood with the other teachers, watching proudly as their students prepared to go out into the galaxy. "When you first came to us," Robert began, his voice carrying through the hall, "many people thought we were making a mistake. They said humans weren't ready for this kind of responsibility. They said we were too primitive, too simple, too different." He smiled at the graduates. "But being different was exactly what made this work. We didn't try to change you. We didn't try to make you fit some idea of what you should be. We just gave you what every child needs: safety, care, and the freedom to grow into yourself." The blue-skinned child who had first asked for help was now a tall, graceful young adult. They stepped forward to speak, their skin glowing with confident light. "Before we came here, we were taught to hide what made us different," they said. "But humans taught us something new. They taught us that being different isn't a weakness. It's a gift. Each of us has something special to share with the galaxy." As if to prove the point, the graduates demonstrated their abilities. Some created beautiful light shows in the air. Others shared the unique ways they could heal, communicate, or solve problems. Abilities that had once made them outcasts now made them extraordinary. In the audience, representatives from every major species in the galaxy watched. Even some who had once agreed with the commander's views about genetic purity had changed their minds. They had seen how diversity made everything better, not worse. "Today, we're not just celebrating our graduates," Dr. Emma said, taking her turn to speak. "We're celebrating every person who chose kindness over fear, acceptance over hatred. And we're celebrating something else, the announcement that 50 New Haven stations will open across the galaxy next year." The hall erupted in cheers. Tom watched as human and alien children hugged each other, their joy needing no translation. The sign language they had created was now used on thousands of worlds, bridging gaps between species who had never been able to communicate before. Near the end of the ceremony, something unexpected happened. A new ship requested permission to dock. When its passengers entered the Great Hall, everyone grew quiet. They wore the same kind of armor as the commander who had once threatened the station. But they weren't here to fight. They were carrying children. Children from their own species who had been born different. Children they had once rejected but now hoped to save. "We heard that you take in strays," one of them said quietly. "That you help children who are different." Captain Robert walked down from the platform. He looked at the children, who shone with their own kind of light, different from their people's usual patterns. Then he smiled and held out his hand in welcome. "That's what humans do," he said. "We take in strays. We help those who need it, and we learn from every single one of them." As the new children were welcomed into the Haven family, the graduates watched with pride. They had been the first, but they wouldn't be the last. Thanks to one simple act of human kindness 5 years ago, the galaxy was becoming a place where being different wasn't just accepted. It was the most natural thing in the universe. After all, in the end, that's what humanity had taught the galaxy. Sometimes the best way to change the universe is to simply open your heart and help someone in need.